Hello and welcome, students. Today we're going to be looking at the cabinet face. So we've got how to cut and put together the cabinet base already. So we've done that. The next thing is to put the cabinet face together. Once the face is done, then we'll be able to glue up the whole cabinet and then worry about doors and drawers and that sort of thing. So let me share my screen with you. We'll go through this and you guys can take some notes on how this is all going to go together. Okay. So a couple of very important parts here, specifically dealing with dimensions. So here is my cabinet face. I have my case over here, right? The four boards that made up the case: left side, right side, back, and bottom. I have doors and drawers over here, but today we're just going to work on the face. Okay. So first of all, if we want a cabinet that is 16 inches wide, the distance from one end, I wonder if I have a tool where I can, no, I can't do that. If I go from the distance from this end over here to this end over here, that's what I need to be 16 inches. So this is really the only place where the width of our cabinet, our total width, comes into play, okay? So you'll notice that if I look at the back, I can see some grooves and dados that make up the joinery to this face. The left side plywood of the case goes in here, the right side over here, and the bottom right over here. This piece right here really helps the case become rigid. Otherwise, if you glue it together, it would be very floppy in those grooves. But making sure that we have the grooves and dados here that fit into the case make the case very rigid. Okay, so this joinery is very important. But you'll notice that the case, there's this little groove here, right? It's not a rabbet. It's not on the side of this piece of wood, right? There's actually a 1/4 inch. Okay, so that's good notes to take. 1/4 inch. You may just want to draw, right, the back of this case and what it would look like. That'd be really helpful. Okay, so I have a groove running down this way, a short little dado over here, running into a groove on this bottom piece, running into the dado on this side, and a groove all the way up. Okay, these are just flat pieces of wood. In fact, both of these pieces of wood, 3/4 inch wide, and they would be the same length, right? Okay. Now, like I said, there is this 1/4 inch right here and a 1/4 inch on that side. Okay, so 2/4 make 1/2 of an inch, which means my the case width being the distance between this edge and this edge, is actually a 1/2 inch less than what I want the total width of my cabinet to be. The total width of my cabinet being from this edge to this edge over here. Again, like I said, the only time the total width comes into play is when we make the face of the cabinet. Okay, so very, very important. The distance then that these pieces are wide would be, well, whatever width of wood. I'm using 1.5 inches right here, which is pretty typical. 1.5 inches for these. For this and that one, that means 2 1.5. That's 3 inches. So if this was a 16-inch wide cabinet, right, minus 3 inches, these pieces would be 13 inches long. Okay, so that's the math that I'm doing to get those right. You'll notice this groove on the bottom. This groove on the bottom has a 1/4 inch lip, not from the bottom, but from the top. Okay, the bottom piece of our plywood sits right in there, and if this groove was too big, you'd have a huge lip that you'd have to pull anything over in order to get it out of the bottom of our cabinet. So we make just a small little lip. Again, so that's a 1/4 inch from the top here. So it'd be great to have a drawing of this. So let's put a drawing together. I think we could easily do that really quick. I'm gonna go to a new just page. Okay, so the drawings that I would put together would be, I would wanna make all the parts that go to this cabinet, right? All the parts that go to the face, I should say. Okay, so this is a great one to have in your notes. And then something like this. Okay, so I have a groove running this way. So I would say between here, it was a little too wide with that one, between there and there should be a quarter of an inch. Same thing on this side. It's hard to write with this thing, so just bear with me. From here to here, again, being a quarter inch wide. The full thickness from here to here, that's the width of your cabinet. So right here, cabinet width, whatever that is. Okay. All right. The height is a little bit different. We'll play around with the height a little bit later, but that's the basics right there. And then why don't I just grab a little eraser and I didn't want to erase the whole thing. Oh man, it's so new to me, right? Again, not what I wanted. Blue one. And then I have the dado is connecting up with the rabbets in this last board. The distance between here and here is a quarter of an inch. Now, because the plywood that I'm using is ½ inch thick, all dados and grooves are ½ inch or a ½ inch wide. ½ inch wide, right? So that should make sense. So here, there's a note, cabinet width right there. We could talk about, how wide the openings are typically for a drawer. I usually use 4-inch openings for my drawers. That usually gives me about a 3.5-inch deep drawer. So that's pretty good. And then again, a typical width for these boards would be 1.5 inches, we would say TYP. So that means that the width of this board would be 1.5 inches. The width of this board would be 1.5 inches. Same thing over here and over here. All that would be very typical. Okay. So that's it. Hopefully you got a good drawing down. You have an idea of how we put that cabinet face together. After we're done putting together and gluing up the cabinet face, we simply just use a butt joint right there. We just put some glue on this piece and that piece and clamp it together. That's really all there is for this piece here, this piece there, and this piece right there. Once we do that and all the grooves and dados are cut, then we can go ahead and put everything together here. Okay, so a typical cabinet section would just have this. Essentially, let me put it a certain way once so you guys can take a look. What I would typically do is I would lay the face down upside down on a table, and then I'd put the sides and the bottom in, and then I'd lay the back on top of it all. Of course, there'd be glue inside the grooves and dados. Okay, glue inside there, glue wherever the grooves and dados are in my case. And then once I have that all together, I would put some clamps on it, and I would use some nails to shoot in places where people wouldn't see, but I would shoot some nails in to hold those grooves and dados and rabbets together so that I could eventually take the clamps off, and it would just, the nails would hold it together while the glue dries. Okay, so the glue would be holding everything together. That would be what keeps your joints together. The nails would just be there almost temporarily, but it's not like you're going to take them out, right? So almost temporarily just to keep the joint together so that it can glue shut. All right. So next video, I think what we're going to do is just take a look at how to make these cabinet doors and drawers. You notice there's some nice detailing on here that we use. I'll show you some more things with the router table and the doors and rails and stiles for these cabinet doors are really fun to put together. Again, with a lot of detailing that goes into them. This is where you can kind of show off a little bit in our joinery. Lots of different types of doors and drawers, so we'll take a look at that next time. So hope you had a good time. keep taking notes and getting through your homework here, and we will see you again soon.